Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Weirdly Magical podcast with Jen and Lou. And I am Lou. I'm an astrologer and writer, and the writer of the book Modern Astrology: Harness the Stars to Discover Your Soul's True Purpose. And you are?
And I'm Jen, and I'm an Akashic reader, healer, numerologist, and creator of the illuminating journey cards that I have right here.
Well, we're going to get Jen to pull a card in a minute, but there's a couple of little housekeeping details to go over first. Jen and I are actually offering a webcast, webinar, training, whatever you want to call it, called Recreate Wholeness in 2019. That will not only kind of be a forecast for 2019, looking at the astrology of the year and into a big month in January 2020, but there'll also be shamanic journey work in it and messages from the Akashic records. And we're also going to provide a PDF for everybody that joins us for you to keep, that will have all key dates and some prompts for you throughout the year, so you don't have to listen to the webinar every time. It will be recorded. Everybody who signs up will receive the recording of the webcast, and it's just $25 to join. So if you would like to join us, please go to either my Facebook, Louise Eddington Astrologer, or Jen Illuminate 8. Do you still post it on there, Jen, or just on your personal profile?
Personal page, Jen Duchenne.
Yeah, or my personal profile too. So with Jen Duchenne, Louise Eddington. Also my Facebook group, Planetary Magic Cafe, which is a free group, and Jen's, which is
Nightclub of the Woo-Woo Weirdos of the World. Yes, I posted there. So it's also a free group.
Yeah. But, you can also email us, if you have trouble finding the link. If you want to join us, just let us know. I'll post a link in the podcast description too. But I know it depends how you access that as to whether you can see it. Okay. There's also Weirdly Magical Podcast at gmail.com. You can email for the link if you want to join us. So I hope you do. We're very excited to offer it. It's going to be 2+ hours long, and it's going to be jam-packed, full of helpful tips and hints to make the most of what's going to be quite a tremendous year. Yeah?
Yes, indeed. While we're on the housekeeping for people who like our podcast or watch on YouTube, be sure to follow us, subscribe, like, and leave us a review if you enjoy what we do.
Please do. The more kind of likes and things we get and reviews, the better. The more we get noticed. So you can help us. Thank you. So Jen, would you like to pull a card to get us started before we look at the chart for this?
Indeed, I already pulled a card, and it's this one, the 23 Soul Portal card. And for those of you who can't see, this is there's the Sphinx on a sandy bed with a woman with a peacock dress, and there's a pheasant. Oh, it's a pheasant dress, and a pheasant there with crystals and fire, and in the background some pyramids with mountain. And so this is very much kind of an Egyptian energy. The actual number 23 is considered the most powerful number in the numerology, because it's the number of the courage, or making us understand the power of life. Mm-hmm. And this card has to do with the riddle, or connecting to how we travel into wherever we're going, into the depth of our journey, what we're willing to do to get where we're going. So this is kind of one of these cards that makes us stop and pay attention. And there's also the symbol here is the Venus, the way Venus travels. So that's kind of an interesting symbol.
And
Venus's flag.
Is that an eagle on top of the pyramid?
Oh yes, and there's an eagle on top of the pyramid there. So it really is an induction, you could say, into your power or your willingness to go on this journey that you're taking now.
And I love how the cards always match up with the astrology of the lunation that we're looking at. So this is a very deserty card and very arid. As you can imagine, well, if you've seen pictures of the Sphinx and the pyramids in Egypt, and this and it's a pheasant, but it also looks a bit phoenixy, which is kind of what I wrote about today on my post. Kind of weird phoenixes, but this astrology, this new moon upcoming is in Aquarius. The chart is actually the new moon is at 15 degrees and 45 minutes of Aquarius on February the 4th at 9:04 p.m. Universal Time. That's London time. The new moon is also conjunct Mercury, which is at 19 degrees of Aquarius, and Black Moon Lilith, true Black Moon Lilith I use, at 20 degrees of Aquarius. And it's aspecting Jupiter in Sagittarius. So we have air, Aquarius is an air sign, and fire in Jupiter in Aquarius. So fire in air is very drying, very arid. So the card ties in perfectly. It's also, I also think as well, you mentioned a riddle with the card. I always think Aquarius energy is a kind of very riddle kind of energy, because it's all about making these connections, these kind of out of the box connections, and really kind of thinking differently and being very kind of unique. But we'll talk more about that energy in a minute. And really the only other couple of things I want to mention in the chart before we just talk about the whole thing is this new moon is coming very shortly after an exact aspect between Saturn in Capricorn, and Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius, and Neptune in Pisces. So we'll talk more about that. And also Chiron is at the last degree of Pisces on this lunation before moving into Aries. And Uranus is about to move into the last degree of Aries. So I think they're the main things that we're going to talk about in the chart for the numbers for this lunation. So do you want to dive in, Jen?
Sure. That's interesting. What just caught my eye is that Mars is at 23, which is the number I just spoke about, and in Aries. And I find
Aries.
Yeah,
his sister.
Oh, yes. That's right. They both are 23. So that's very powerful, because this number of 23 is this energy. And the number 23 actually resonates to the word life. So it's reminding us to be alive. We must have courage. Like, we have to trust our instincts. We have to trust the messages. You know, if you think about going to, like in the card, if you think about going to the pyramids, there's a very mystical, magical quality there, but it's also very real, right? You can touch it, but it's also bringing you messages from other places, and living in the moment, which means that we become the breath and we own the moment, and that's what the 5 is. 2 + 3 is 5. So that's very interesting. That I just feel, and we talked about this before, how the male aspects are supporting this new age of the female taking her place. So it's quite a beautiful dance. The numbers that I was just thinking about the numbers before we, when I was looking at the map before I got on here. And what's very interesting is, so we're in this 2019, it's a 12 year. So when you have 12, you have 1 and 2, right? In the numbers, and 1 and 2 make 3. So you have 1, 2, 3. So there's this energy of a step-by-step process that we're going through. It's a very deliberate energy. We're walking into a new time. We don't know what to do. So we have to be kind of literal in how we translate the messages or the energies we're getting. So we have that 1, 2, 3. This moon is happening on the 4th, right? So, which is powerful. So we have a 4. This is a 14.5 months. So we have a 5. And then we have the 15 degrees. So we have a 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's amazing for this lunation. It really is quite incredible to think about it. It really is the movement of going forward in a very deliberate way. Like we are on path to create something. And so we have to be deliberate. We have to consider our focus, connect the dots, get playful, joyful, as well as be willing to be curious and make mistakes as we start to create a new foundation and then breathe life into it. Be daring and adventurous. We have this habit of when we're doing things or creating things that we think it's fixed and things can't change. Well, it's fixed and it has to be able to be flexible too, right? When you put the foundations around, we've got to have room so you can have windows and doors, etc. in the house. And this 6, this 15 is a very powerful alchemical number that allows us to bring or be of service in a high divine way. So it's just a beautiful matchup, and I think it's quite incredible that we're having this for this new moon.
And you know, astrologically, the big lineup of the sun and the moon at 15 degrees Aquarius, Mercury at 19, and Lilith at 20 brings in a very wild kind of energy to me. You know, Lilith is really our wild part of us. It's kind of this wild, untamed energy. Mercury is our mind, our perceptions, our communication. As I said, Aquarius is an air sign, which is of the mind. So I think to talk about the overall energy of Aquarius before I move to the other aspects, Aquarius is a fixed sign, and it's this weird kind of weird is a great word for Aquarius anyway. It's a weird mix of conservatism and an innovation and the modern and the new and visions, and that kind of brings me back to your card as well, because you know I've long said that as we move into the age of Aquarius, we are bringing in the old ways in a new way, and this is another step in it. I think, you know, this big kind of conflagration of energy in Aquarius. And of course then it's aspecting almost exactly Jupiter in Sagittarius, which expands everything and is about exploration and higher learning and all that kind of thing. I think, you know, if people are not being kind of pulled to explore some kind of higher kind of learning and things like that, whether it's through reading or study or just kind of just thinking, you know, I think that they're kind of missing a trick on this new moon. It's very, very innovative, very out of the box, very exploratory, very optimistic too, I think, with all that fire and air. And just to say, Aquarius is often described as the water bearer, and I do want to remind people that the water bearer is not pouring water down onto the earth. It's pouring spirit from the heaven down onto the earth. So we're really connecting with the planets, to my mind, on this one as well. Uranus and Aquarius always feel like the planets to me, kind of them working together. I've got lots more to say, but let's let Jen come back in.
Yeah, it's to me, it's the ethers, right? I think of it as
Yeah.
the ethers, this energy of, it's the steam that happens, fire and water, which makes this energy of what is invisible, right? It's the idea that the invisible and the imagination is pours into our world, and having this mix of, the sun and moon plus Mercury, which is helping us. Right, it's the mercurial quality of helping us understand that we're receiving this information and what we're going to do with it, as well as Lilith, which of course she is the energy, the primordial energy that reminds us of our wholeness. And interesting, Mercury's at 19 degrees, that's a 1. I think we also have Venus at 1. So, and, our 19 year, that's 1. So highly significant having this 19. It's reminding us that this is about beginnings and endings. There is also our universal day for this is an 18. So that's also significant. Jupiter's at 18, and 18 is the number of letting go of that ego-based idea that we know the way it's supposed to be. Like, part of this Aquarian energy to me is like, we're looking at like, oh yes, science is going to give us all the answers. But we've looked to science, and science has kind of tricked us, right? I mean, there's this idea that, oh, we can prove everything with our rational mind. I'm going to show you that this is true. And there's a lot of people out there right now who are using this kind of idea of rationality. I saw this funny joke, and I posted it on my page, where this guy is saying to another guy, do you believe in aliens? And the guy goes, no. He says, well, why not? I've never seen an alien. And then he goes, well, do you believe in God? And the guy goes, yes. And then, that's right. It's like, oh, okay, I can believe in God, but I don't believe in aliens. So it's that kind of fixed mind thing, like our minds being closed and our egos deciding that that's not possible. There's no way this can be true, or I refuse to accept that because it's somewhere out there. It's so ridiculous. It's only in your imagination. But it's our imagination that changes the way we see things and allows us to take the best of what's coming in and use the best of, like what you were saying, Lou, the idea of this, the mix of Saturn and Uranus, the rebel and the shape, if you will. Like, what's the shape? Like, remembering this is a 4-day, there's a lot of that energy of the Capricorn energy of getting things done, taking those steps up the mountain, right, to get to the top. And that's the exaltation, is being on the journey to get to that view, to that amazing thing, I did it. But the only way you can do it is if you, go up the mountain. And a very interesting thing about going up the mountain is that people say, I haven't done it myself, but this is what I've heard, like if you climb like Mount Everest, for instance, because of the altitude of the mountain, you climb up for a day, and then you have to go back to base. So you can adjust back and forward so you get used to the altitude. And so if we think about Aquarius, that's kind of an altitude thing, right? You're doing the climbing up the mountain, but you also have to go back to base to reacclimatize so you can climb a little bit more and then come back, climb a little bit more. And this is what this is, to me, is about. It's about really understanding everything's changing. So what are we taking? Are we just going to reject it all? Are we just going to hold on to things that are fluff? We have to find that balance between the rules and this idea of allowing imagination to lead us through this journey.
And it's, taking the best of the structures we already have, really, isn't it? It's taking them
yes,
in a forward way. And, to go back to the Saturn, just to kind of reflect on something Jen said about Saturn and Uranus. That's the traditional and modern rulers of Aquarius. But Saturn, as I mentioned at the beginning, is in its own sign. We've got so many planets in their own sign at the moment, by the way. And Saturn is aspecting Neptune in Pisces just before this lunation. And so this is bringing Neptune in Pisces. Neptune also rules Pisces again, so extra strong. Has been there for a long time, and then really I see Neptune in Pisces as spiritualizing us. We're kind of you know, a lot more people are talking about spirituality rather than religion, and about faith, and in a different way than we've been used to, kind of under the patriarchy. But Saturn in Capricorn is making it real. It's bringing it down to earth and making it very practical. So again, we've got this mix of kind of the collective unconscious and the mystical, if you like, but also this solidity. So there's a lot of bringing everything together, if you like. And I love that Saturn is at 15 degrees of Capricorn, Neptune is at 15 degrees of Pisces, and the moon and the sun are exactly at the midpoint of those two, between those two signs at 15 degrees as well. So we've got this perfect symmetry of bringing them together into the Aquarian new moon, in my opinion. So yeah, that's one thing I wanted to mention. I also, you know, do want to mention that Jupiter, which I've already talked about, is aspecting this new moon in Sagittarius, again in his own sign. We have 3 exact Jupiter-Neptune squares this year, and they're very much the same energy. Talking of traditional and modern rulers, Jupiter was the traditional ruler of Pisces, Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. So these squares are very much about faith and belief this year, but each Jupiter-Neptune square is followed by a Saturn-Neptune sextile that we have on this new moon, making it solid, bringing it back down to earth in how we're going to bring it into our new rules, basically.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is it's kind of like, it makes me think of the bellows, right? Or whatever. There's energy coming in, and then, or like a snake who eats a rat or whatever, right? It's like this big whole thing, and then it needs to be digested, and then a big whole thing, and then it needs to be digested. I mean, this is it. Like the universe is helping us move through these steps, and not flinging us like wildly out there, even though we feel that sense of loss, or we feel that sense of, I'm not sure where I'm going. I think many of us, I myself included, since the eclipse we just had, the lunar eclipse, feel more open and more relaxed about this uncertainty, because we are being guided. The certainty is that we follow the steps, we follow the path, we expand and contract, just like the universe is leading us. What's interesting about the 15, besides the fact that this highly alchemical number, is, of course, 15 degrees is the center of the of the house, and if fixed,
the middle degree.
Yes, exactly. And Aquarius is one of the fixed ones, which in the ancient system, that was the gateways, the 4 fixed gateways or doorways. And so Aquarius is one of them, and I believe it's called, you know, people call it the avatar avatar, because this is about creating something new, right? It's an avatar. It's something that has not been created, or it's something that is universal, or that's how I see avatar. So it's an avatar portal. But in the ancient, when you look at, I think it's on the world card in tarot, you have the 4 beings, right? You have the bull, you have the lion, you have the scorpion, I think it is, and the angel. So the Aquarian one is the angel. Do I have it right? The scorpion? I'm pretty sure it's those. They actually have names and everything. So
I can't remember actually.
So. It's scorpion. It's the scorpion one, but I don't remember I'm pretty sure it's the scorpion for Scorpio. But for Aquarius, it's the angel, the face, right? It's this, when you think about that energy coming in, right? It's that the bringing us the magic or the invisible into us. And they say that this degree, when you have this 15 degree of the fixed signs, specifically Aquarius, I think, is this idea that it sparks your imagination, that it gives you a momentum to go forward. Because if you think about it, I think it's all the gateways, right? If you're thinking about this idea that there are these gateways that would lead us into kind of deepening our experience and allowing us to connect in a new way, we are going to have that spark or that allowance that magical things or accidental things happen. That's very interesting. And remembering that we're in a 14 month, that's a 5. The 1 and a 4 is a 5. And this is about not only having, with all these 5s showing up, right? It's about unexpected things. It's about change. It's about freedom. It's about recognizing what needs to stay and what needs to go, and how we can have an adventure and experience. With the 14, of course, we're at the space where we're describing how we feel. We're talking about it. We're mentioning our experiences, especially if we talk about the spiritual. When you were talking about, when Lou was talking about this idea of the Neptune expanding spirituality with Jupiter, right? And learning and understanding and increasing that energy, it really allows us to express the wonder of what we're experiencing and going, I'm not going to let other people tell me to keep quiet, or this isn't happening, or oh, you're just imagining it. Yes, I'm imagining it, because that's where the power comes from, our imagination. That's where we create. And so there's that speaking energy that's coming out, that we're going to hear things that will surprise us and shock us and make us go, I've had enough of that kind of acceptance on my part. I'm going to go for what I want. And so there's a lot of energy that's stirred up when these gates are touched.
So I just want to talk about the 15 very quickly again. I forgot to mention at the beginning that this is one of a series of new moons at 15 degrees.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And just as we're having a series of 5 full moons at 0 degrees, this is, I think, is this the 4th or 3rd? I can't remember now.
Well, this is one of 7. I looked it up yesterday.
One of 7. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The new moons, there's 7. And it started in October. So I think this is the 5th.
And I think I've mentioned before that I see 15 degrees to add to everything that Jen said, because it's the middle degree. I kind of see it as a fulcrum, like the pivot point, like we're moving, from the beginning part of the sign to the second part of the sign. And I always find that everything that when we have lunations or some major event at the 15 degrees, then it's a turning point. So we're getting this series of turning points to add to this series of limitless possibilities with the 0 degree full moons. We're really kind of shifting into a different time rapidly now. Pluto's going to go into the sign of Aquarius, where this lunation is, in March 2023. And a lot of astrologers believe that kind of that's really when the age of Aquarius kicks in. We've kind of been in this birthing of this new paradigm for a long time. But once Pluto hits it and follows Saturn and Jupiter into it, I think we're really gonna start to feel the difference and the new age. But this is part 1 of the turning points, moving towards that. And then, of course, the modern ruler of this lunation, Uranus, is on this lunation is at 28 degrees and 57 minutes of Aries. But he's very soon going to move back into Taurus, where he dipped his toe in, if you like, a while back. He moves on March the 6th back into Taurus for 7 years. So we've got that energy shift coming not long after this lunation as well. And Chiron will be moving very soon into Aries, finally. So we've got a lot of changes. And Jen mentioned the word freedom. So there's a lot of freedom from kind of old patterns and things like this on this, because Aquarius is a very free sign. Sagittarius is all about freedom and exploration. So there's a lot of breaking free energy, I feel, overall. Not to mention the fact we've just had eclipses on the south node of in Capricorn, which is also a point of breaking free of the old rules. So, but it's not throwing them out with the dishwater, as or the bathwater, as Jen said. It's really about taking the best and leaving what no longer works behind. So.
Yeah, and a lot of this is up to us. Like, what are we engaging in and where we're putting our attention? And I think it's really interesting that Uranus is the 28 degrees, that's a 1 too. And I know I mentioned a couple of other ones, which is about focus and new beginnings. And the 28 specifically is about breaking away from betrayal. So because many times we go like, oh, I started again this new year. Look, I tried, it doesn't work. But we have to approach this with an innovation. It's not going to work if we try the same old things again, if we think the same way. So all of these things, these planets, Pluto especially, is helping us here, Saturn, I mean, all of them are, not just Pluto, but all of them are working the poison out of our systems, this idea of how it's supposed to be, this kind of robotic response. And it's interesting because Aquarius is about robots and AI, right? It is about all these new ideas. But we have to be smart about this stuff, because for me, I believe that when you create robots, it's all great. Like, oh, here we got these robotic beings and going to do what we want. But in the end, everything has a life form. So even the robots that we create become real. They take on an energy. They take on a what do you call it, like a beingness. So, and we can't just throw up our hands like we have and said, I'm not going to take care of it. I don't want to be responsible. Saturn is pushing us to be responsible as well. And the 15, the other thing about the 15 is very interesting, is that it's a number of love, family love, connecting to what we love, doing things from love. I'm hearing people talking more and more about service, and I believe that Uranus is a service number, and it is about this idea of doing things and making choices because we're here to be of service. What we, ultimately, that's our greatest experience with others, is to do what we're here to do, to share who we are in a truth, so that we're not feeling resentful and we don't feel pinched, and so that everything starts to flow. It's almost like when Lou was talking, it's like I see this key turning, but it's turning one kind of piece at a time. How when it hits those little knobs, it keeps turning. It's not like it's the tumblers. It's not just like one loop, but it's like this slow tumbler you're hitting. So you hit the point, you're actually making connection. You're standing on the step, you're going, yes, I can feel this. I know what's happening. I'm relating to it. I'm kind of putting my mark on this step or this tumbler movement, and we're all kind of doing that, and we're all beginning to move together because we're creating something new, which is very exciting. The other thing about the 15 Aquarius that apparently, I don't know, this is what they say, is it's the number of, Aquarius is about hopes and wishes, and so 15 is the one that kind of kicks it in, right? There's kicks in that energy, which is kind of fascinating to think. Here we have this opportunity to bring in our hopes and wishes, and I think if we can be more real about it, like there tends to be, or has been, we've looked at things like I want that house, or I want that brand, or I want that thing that everyone else says I'm supposed to have. And here with all this truth energy coming through, like, you know, Jupiter in Sagittarius, to me, that's very much a true energy. I think Capricorn, Saturn in Capricorn. What's
Meaning,
that?
meaning, what has meaning is a great
What has
Jupiter in Sagittarius too. Yeah.
That's right. So, you know, so it makes sense that we actually are choosing things or having hopes and wishes about things that enhance the idea of being of service, of seeing your life, your business, your expression as something of service, not like you're a servant, but more like you're expressing the divine through your exuberance and your practicality.
And I will say Aquarius as well is a very humanitarian sign. So this is not just, it's not just service to people, it's service to the earth. We're beginning to really see a much bigger focus on how can we do our part to heal what we've done to the planet, really, you know, with our kind of manifest destiny and dominion kind of control of everything and rape of the earth. And with Uranus, the modern ruler of Aquarius, moving into Taurus, you know, just 4 weeks after this new moon, I think there's going to be a even bigger focus on how can we think out of the box. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some new inventions coming up, anytime soon, to, you know, in the area of ecology. And
yes,
yeah, because it's very inventive as well. So we've got that humanitarian kind of element to it. We've got the freedom side of it. We've also got the business side of it. Jen and I were talking, and that will show up when Jen reads the Sabian symbol, the business side of Aquarius, because it does represent business to a degree and organizations. I think we're going to see a lot of how can we do this differently? How can we do business differently? It's very unique, Aquarius. It likes to find new ways of creating old things better. So, yeah.
Yes. And on that note, it's the, I think what's interesting is this idea of enlightened leadership, right? We've had like unenlightened leadership or heavy, it's like a heavy metal leadership. And now we're looking at ways to kind of lighten it up and bring this energy in, and people going, and especially because we know a lot of this is about women, right? Again, you know, we always make that caveat as we're not saying anything bad about men. In fact, there are a lot of enlightened men coming through, which is wonderful. But we all have that feminine energy. And it's true that a lot of women are great problem solvers, because women tend to look at how can we, instead of blaming or shaming and stuff, although there are a lot of men that do that too, we just kind of go, how can we fix this? And maybe it's not so much whether we're male or female, but how we think, how much Uranus energy or Aquarian energy we have in us, or right, that spark of Jupiter, like, wow, what can we do to make this different? Yes, this is how it was, let's go forward, let's change things. So it is it's going to be hard for people who are wanting to hold on to the old things, which doesn't mean they're not going to be able to express what they express. We still have to deal with them, like they're just not going to go away, right?
Yeah.
You know, they haven't come up with an invention yet to silence them or move them away. So we have to deal with it.
We do.
Yes. But I think the more we recognize, like, wow, these people are saying things that are hot air. They're talking about lies and things that don't resonate. The more we recognize, like, these people have a problem. So we're not going to change them, but we can move away from them and start doing things around them. Like, just start doing whatever we believe in. You know, bring in these ideas of putting our money into these inventions and these ideas that not so much, because in a lot of inventions tend to be like about how can I make more money or how can I have a gadget, but this is more about what can we do to really renew sources and think differently about how we live every day in this environment. I saw some movie or something the other day, and one of the interesting things they were talking about was one of those spiritual movies, and it was about how we have typically been trained to try to use the energy people have over them, right? We're trying to control other people's energy by using it up, and we have to learn how to expand our own energy. So we're in relationship to everything without needing to prove ourselves. And I think that's really very relevant at this time.
I hadn't planned on talking about this, but as we talked, I was like, I'm just going to look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's chart. And for those of you not in the USA, you may have heard of her. She's a newly elected representative from the Bronx in New York. And I just thought, I'm just going to have a quick look at what's going on in her chart, because we have got her birth time now. And an astrologer actually asked her on Twitter, and she actually gave it. Woo. But anyway, this lunation, her north node is at 24 degrees of Aquarius. Okay. And her rising sign is 15 degrees of Sagittarius. So this lunation is hitting her. And I don't know if anybody, if you watched her speech at the Women's March, Jen, did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't have a chance yet, but I'll have to go check.
She actually talked about shaking the table.
Yes, I think I heard that part.
Yeah. So, and this new moon is really shaking the table and talking about the. You know, I don't want to make it all about her, but she's just a representative of the energies, I find. An excellent one of the current energies. You know, we're talking about business. It can also mean how we govern as well. And she's talking about shaking up the tax system and changing up things. And then there's another guy who's also talking, and I actually looked at his chart, and I think it's being triggered on this as well. He's talking about things like universal basic income. Now, it doesn't matter what you think of these things. It's just that these different ideas, and let's change how we do this. They're all being, brought into our collective psyche at the moment. And I'm sure only some of them will come to pass, but it's the fact that people are thinking differently about how can we move forward for the good of humanity and the earth. That's the point.
Yeah, we want to be good stewards. And this is an excellent point, that these people are helping to bring ideas into the world. Like remembering they're getting these ideas from their imagination or from source, however you want to think about it, and bringing it in. And if there's enough people, you have the tipping point, and those are the things that actually shape us and change us. But more importantly, I think, especially for this month and this lunation, is this idea that we are being generous with our words. We're speaking about ideas instead of about complaining about what's wrong and what we don't like. We're actually starting to generate and kind of connect, the wiring between us by going, yes, this is, what about this? And I could do this, and I'll contribute this, and I'll bring this. However it is, we're being encouraged to do that. So it's great to have role models out there in the government, especially because this is a time when old governance is not working anymore. So, who is going to change it? It has to be the ideas, the imagination, people that are willing to stand up. And of course, this whole year is about finding the joy. Yes, shaking the table, but not like it used to be. Like, even I noticed when I went to the march on Saturday, the Women's March last year, it was very tense, and I mean, it was wonderful. It wasn't like there was any, there was a lot of fever and energy, and it was great, but it was very kind of stern in a way. People were like, "Oh, we've had enough." But this year, it felt very light, and it felt very happy. People were like, yeah, we've won. We know we've moved past that. Even maybe they weren't articulating it there. No. That was the feeling I got, that people know, like, we have overcome these old ways of thinking we're downtrodden. And so once we've, kicked up above that, we then go into these places where we can actually create and be in joy, and know that none of these people that are trying to suppress us or steal our energy and control us can really have any control over us. So it's
Maybe
powerful.
I'll go next year. I've never been to a women's march yet.
Oh yeah, well, hey, anything can happen. So
but
much.
maybe if the mood has shifted, I will go.
Yeah. Well, I found it very different. So it was very interesting. It was very light. The energy was wonderful. I also wanted to mention something for people that are into the ancient kind of wheel, that this year, this new moon actually falls on Imbolc, which is pretty rare. Imbolc is actually, they usually give it a date, but the true Imbolc is when Aquarius is at 15 degrees. That is because that's the quarter points between the equinox and solstice. So that's pretty amazing, because Imbolc is the festival of the spring, and it's the goddess is Bridget, and it's actually like the priestess, the empress in the tarot, because it's about planting the seed and being pregnant with possibility. So that's pretty awesome to have that energy. And then on the 5th, we have the Chinese New Year, which is the year of the pig. This is the Earth pig.
And it's my year.
Oh, is it? Oh, how exciting. Oh, you're a pig. I didn't know that. So that's really, oh, wonderful. Pigs are very happy, and they love socializing, but they're also, happy people, but they're also very hardworking. They tend to be very lucky and good with money and business. So that's good, right? But it's good. We're having this energy, right? This energy of change and joy, this idea, pigs have a lot of fun. Like we always talk about pigs in their, what do they say? Pigs in the trough.
Pig in muck.
Yeah, pig in muck, right? Like this is kind of where we are in this year, right? We've got to get in the muck. We can swim around. We can have fun. This is what we're talking about, jumping in and trying all different things, eating different things, and enjoying the social aspect of connecting with our world in a whole different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm kind of excited about this year. Jupiter return, pig year. Woo! Of course, Jupiter is aspecting this new moon, and it's sitting right between my Jupiter and my Sun. But anyway, enough about me.
It is exciting because, it's just like, it's this positive aspect that we all have access to. Like, even though not all of us are pigs, we all have access to the energy, because those people that are pigs, by the way, it's the 12th sign of the zodiac. So that's very interesting, because we're in a 12 year as well. So that's another interesting point. But I think the point is, when we enjoy other people's enjoyment, right? When we enjoy watching the pigs getting in the mud, then maybe we can get in the mud too with them. Or we get the benefit of people being in their joy, people, expressing who they are. So, hey, we want more of that.
Exactly. More positive thinking, but not in that way of you have to think positive. It's just genuine positive optimism. There's more of that vibe definitely coming in on this lunation. So and more to come. Yeah,
exactly. And just like you were talking about AOC, this whole idea is you could turn around and say, what can I do? I haven't any power. Or you can get in and make a difference, and then get voted in, and then start bringing in these new ideas that people think are crazy or odd or wild, but suddenly you bring in hope, and people are like, wow, there's somebody doing stuff. They're not just sitting there going, what can I do, right? They're having a good time, and they're sharing it with us. And so this kind of energy just spreads, right? They say we are the sum. I mean, energetically and on the monetary terms and all different terms of the people, the 5 people we hang out with. Yeah. And so if we're hanging out with these kind of people because they're sparking something inside of us, it's changing us.
Yeah, exactly. Shall we move on to the symbols, or do you have anything more to say
Indeed.
about the?
I don't think I have anything more to say.
No, I don't think.
Except maybe just mentioning for people who are curious about the Imbolc or who don't know, this is a great time to plant a seed, or, when you're pregnant with the idea of fertile, this is a fertile time where you can plant those seeds of truth or hope, and maybe you don't know exactly what it looks like. I think a lot of times people put a lot of emphasis on, oh, but you got to know the path and what it all looks like. And the truth is you don't. You just need to have a genuine desire, curiosity to create this thing that's coming through you and put that seed out, right? Do this energy, dance to this. This is a great time to actually celebrate dance, have a little ceremony, welcome the amazing miracle that we can plant something and that it grows, with the help of all of this.
For anybody that doesn't know these words, it's IMBOLC, if you want to look it up, Imbolc. And talking about curiosity, of course, we kind of glossed over the fact that Mercury is conjunct this new moon. And Mercury is all about curiosity, especially in another air sign, because it rules Gemini normally. Yep. So it is a very curious, exploratory new moon. It's also, we talk about New Year's resolutions and goal setting and all those kind of things. This new moon is actually way more suited to, I'm going to call it future visioning, not having this, I'm going to do this on this day and I'm going to earn this much money by this, but it's this overall big vision. It's a very good time to do that if you want to do that, to set intention, to really vision this future, how you want it to be. And I'm not talking about having a new car particularly, unless
yes, because really this is about engaging, right? This is about engaging with the earth, engaging with the spirits, engaging with the desire within you. That it may not even have a name, but this is the idea that you want to dance and celebrate and bring that energy out. So that, to me, is what service is about, of being a steward to, having a joyful attitude where you go, you know what, whatever this experience is going to be like, I'm going to make the most of it. I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm going to experience it. Even if shitty things happen, it's okay, because I am going to feast on the life I had, instead of sitting there in the back going, if only I had a better something, right?
Exactly. Anyway, the symbols.
Indeed. All right.
So Jen's going to start with the Sabian symbol, and then I will read the Chandra symbol.
Okay. So Aquarius 16.
Mm-hmm.
A big businessman at his desk. This is a symbol of personal stability through organizational powers. Emphasized in terms of an efficient participation in everyday, I'm having issues here, affairs.
Oh.
The maintenance of the position or advantage of an individual may win among his fellows requires a constant attention to his fundamental interests through the continual ebb and flow of circumstance, and he is generally successful as he remains undisturbed within himself throughout the ramifying vicissitudes. Personality is developed as it is challenged to prove itself. The key word is accomplishment. When positive, the degree is effective self-realization through achievement of consequence. And when negative, ambitious superficiality.
Now, Mercury is very much about organization as well, by the way. So, we have this new moon conjunct Mercury. I find that kind of a bit of a puzzler, that symbol, for me, really.
Well,
of
I think that,
leadership.
yeah, it is a
Yeah.
puzzle. But, for me, I think it speaks to some of the stuff we were talking about. Like, this is, in a sense, a businessman or a business person or somebody who has an intention. Let's just say it's an intentional idea that we want to accomplish things. And the
Mm,
only way we can do it is by focusing. I'm sitting at my desk, I'm working on my thing, I'm not being distracted by somebody else wanting me to look over here or come and try that.
mm.
It's very much, what am I building? What am I focusing? What am I establishing? It's like those steps up. It feels very remembering that isn't Saturn Saturn is the old ruler of Aquarius, so
Yes.
that's very Saturnian, right?
Yeah, it
It's
is.
very
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that aspect.
Hmm.
So accomplishment. What do we want to accomplish, right? I
Yeah.
think that's something we feel good when we've accomplished something. We always say that. Like, I mean, I do, right? Maybe
I,
because I'm yours.
yeah, we do. We feel, yeah, we do. Hmm. Like completing things and accomplishing things. For
Yeah, and feeling those steps like, oh, here's an idea. I'm actually taking that idea to fruition.
mm. Hmm. Okay, so the Chandra symbol, Aquarius 16, ground up gemstones to be used as medicine. So, well, just initially, before I read it all, that kind of really speaks to me of taking something really old and making something new of it. But, the whole symbol is very Aquarian. Technical proficiency across a broad spectrum of forms and ways, knowing how to do just about anything. You are involved with the precise combinations in a dazzling display of capacity. You seek to find new ways, innovations, and fresh approaches, yet you are steeped in tradition and ancient wisdom. Somewhat swept away with the whole enterprise, where the mere linear intelligence takes charge and views everything on its terms, intent upon results, looking for proof, insistent that the objective, factual, practical realities are everything. You feel compelled by your vantage point to apply a fierce ideology to every manifest particular, seeing examples, variations, confirmations, and validations of the theory, the principle, the standpoint, driving home verbally, brilliantly, the argument, caught in the dialectics of truth and falsehood, and comprehensively enclosed within a one-sided and self-justifying thrust of mind that is so good at playing this game that you will win and prevail. Yet something is missing, much is denied. I kind of feel like that's a bit of a warning, that last bit, to not throw out, it's all full of like, we're full of these new ideas, these innovations, these innovative, creative kind of things. And yet, if we're not careful, we get so caught up in these new ideas and things, we do throw out the baby with the bathwater that we've talked about, some of the old things. And I did have a thought going back to Jen's card right at the start, with the Sphinx and the pyramid. For those of you that are interested in old myths and old traditions and old ways, I think I think there might be something to learn from the Egyptian cosmology and myths in this lunation, if you're so inclined, taking those old ways and bringing them into the new ways. So.
Yes, and that's a great point. And it just when I was listening to you talking about the eating, crushed gems, I just thought it sounded exactly like the big businessman sitting at his desk to me. It's this very similar kind of thing. Of course, we don't want to think about that big businessman, but really, if we think about a successful person in business, that's what they do. Who's an innovator, right? Not who's a leader who creates something new. They focus on what they're bringing in, and again, it's the rigidity we have to be careful of. The two different, like that scale of what's coming through. Are we getting focused on kind of the shiny bits? Are we really letting the whole energy of this idea come through and looking at all the parts and then really kind of piecing the pieces together as if we're building something together? Or we're just running with some shiny thing, I want it to be like this, and or the reverse, going like to the pyramids and going, well, it has to be exactly the way they did it, right? Because of course that's bullshit. It's
recreate.
Well, it would be fake recreating it, right? You don't know what they did or why they did it. I mean, I remember I saw this article once, and it was very funny. It struck me because they were showing, they were showing these people from the past in these outfits, like this is how they dress, and like their costumes, and people go, but those were not costumes, those were their actual clothes, right? They weren't dressing up, right? And it was like, yeah, that's true. Like we go and we dress up and we put up all this, costume stuff, but that's all bullshit. Like we must wear the clothes we wear, and we must adapt to this, taking the good parts that make sense and bringing it into the now, right? And that's kind of what you've been saying and I've been saying and we've all been saying.
Yep.
In the right? It's like, yeah, we look to the past, but we also look to the present. How does it fit together, and what's the future? Like, where are we going, right? We're not going backwards, so we need to adapt for.
And if you think about the mix of fire and air, just to go back to that, it's air really fans flames. We are, and as I said before as well, all the planets are direct until the beginning of March. This is real, like fast forward. Okay, time to get on with it. It's kind of very exciting, I think.
It is very exciting, very promising and wonderful.
Yeah.
Remembering, whatever you're doing, if you're eating crushed crystals or you're sitting at your desk, you're applying yourself to what you want to accomplish.
Exactly.
So you're doing what's needed, and remembering you don't need to rebuild what's already been created. And I laugh because the president made the comment of the US, made the comment about, oh, he loves wars, they're a medieval invention, which they're not a medieval invention, but anyway. But what about what did he say? Wheels are medieval. That's not a medieval either, but true, we still use wheels, right? But we don't use them in the same way. We don't have rocks. So originally wheels were made to turn for pottery and stuff like that. So we have wheels, but they don't look the same, right? And they don't function the same way. So we have to move with the times, with the innovation, and adapt, as well as recognizing, like, wow, this round shape does work. It's it's great for moving things.
Oh, we had to end on a high note with his words. Whoa.
Well, I think it's funny. To me, this is funny, even though I know there's a lot of pain involved. We got to look at the funny side of it.
Oh, we do, and I thought that was funny as well. So.
Oh, good.
Oh. So one last reminder before we kind of tell you where you can find us, that we have our webcast coming up. I don't think I mentioned the date. It's on July the 31st. I mean, January the 31st. So it's just over a week's time. And it's at 12 p.m. Pacific. And you can actually find the page for it on my website, louiseeddington.com/recreate wholeness. Or you can contact us for the link, as we mentioned already. So Jen, where can people find you? Just quickly go over again. I know we mentioned at the start.
Yes, you can find me everywhere. Facebook, you can look up my name, Instagram, YouTube, jendushen.com, and my group on Facebook is the Light Club of the Woo-Woo Weirdos of the World.
And you can find me at louiseeddington.com, Louise Eddington on Facebook, Louise Eddington Astrologer Facebook page, free Facebook group, Planetary Magic Cafe. I'm also on medium.com as Louise Eddington, where I write every day, and Patreon. I have a Patreon too. So I think that's us covered everything for this one. Look forward to February the 4th. Get prepared to really kind of let your winds of fire and everything go through your mind and really kind of blast forward into the rest of this amazing year that we've got coming up. So for now, it's goodbye from Lou.
Goodbye from Jen.